What is going on, Headliner Nation? Jake Fantasy Headliners. Hopefully everybody's doing well out there. And if you're a fan of fantasy football, or the Steelers for that matter, hit the like button because we got some news coming for you today about Big Ben Roethlisberger. We've been getting a lot of questions about the Steelers as a whole, really, because you got JuJu, James Conner, Big Ben, a lot of fantasy football assets. Don't forget about the Deontay Johnsons, James Washingtons, the newly drafted Chase Claypools, a lot of weapons possibly in this offense. But right now, Big Ben's kind of looking like an out-of-work, middle-aged, lumberjack who's seen better days, and a whole lot of question marks surrounding what his injury actually was. Does he come back? Does he help produce some fantasy value for some of the names we just mentioned? A lot of questions surrounding the assets of the Pittsburgh Steelers and how we can use them for 2020 fantasy football. But I'm no doctor. I have no idea other than to tell you that his elbow basically exploded, but that's not the medical term. So to make sure we get you guys the right answers, the right information, it's time for another segment of What's Up, Doc, with Dr. Ethan Turner. All right, Doc, you got to give it to us straight. I mean, is there anything left in the elbow of Big Ben Roethlisberger that even resembles an elbow at this point?
Well, I hope so. As a Steelers fan, I really do hope that his elbow is going to be okay. Obviously, the team thinks he's going to be okay, but man, essentially, you look at this injury, his elbow exploded. So this is not ideal for a quarterback, especially.
You kind of need an elbow to play quarterback.
Yeah, I guess it's pretty important. I guess you need an elbow. But no, this is pretty serious stuff. His injury, happened in week 2. Apparently he had pain in the elbow beforehand, which the team actually got in trouble for not basically disclosing that he was not practicing at full speed, because you're supposed to, if a player's not practicing to their full potential or full practices, you have to list it on. So the team got fined for that because the pain started before his injury actually occurred. And then his teammate, actually his center, Marquise Pouncey, came out and said that this has been something that's bothered Ben for years beforehand. So I would like to say that probably the writing was on the wall that something was going to give with this elbow. But obviously it hit at a most unopportune time for our Steelers fans, just because the season was basically a wash once he went down.
Yeah, Mason Rudolph and Duck Hodges were not the answer in 2019. They did not play good football. But you kind of mentioned it here a second ago when you said that the team thinks that he's okay. And part of the reason we say that is they didn't take a quarterback here in the draft. They didn't sign anybody as of yet in free agency. As I was looking through the draft order, they had their chance to go after maybe a Jalen Hurts in the second round. They passed on him for another weapon in Chase Claypool. All things out of Steelers camp makes it seem like they're ready to go, moving forward with Big Ben once the season actually starts. But with what you've seen from his injury, what chance do you see that Big Ben's going to be anywhere near the level of play that we saw, maybe at least in 2018?
Yeah, and with his injury, it really is kind of a big question mark at this point. He had a UCL tear, which is you typically see in baseball pitchers. And what happens is it's basically the ligament. The ulnar collateral ligament is a ligament that has 3 parts that's right on the inside of the elbow. And so what happens is basically you torque back and you put a ton of stress on this ligament. This ligament is what keeps my arm from basically like flipping back behind me when I go back to throw.
Right.
A lot of times with professional athletes, pitchers especially, but also with quarterbacks, you'll see they get a lot more rotation back. That's already basically loosened up because of how often they have to throw. The problem with this is that once you get rid of it, it's one of the 2 major ligaments that keeps your elbow like in socket, like basically from dislocating. So when you tear it, it's 1, very, very painful. And 2, it won't just like reheal itself. It's one of those parts of the body that just doesn't, you have to go in and do something or it's just going to be torn forever. With Ben, he's got a really unique injury because, like I said, this was something that has been kind of bothering him for a few years. UCL tears can happen 1 of 2 ways. They're either a chronic thing where over time, repetitively throwing, the UCL fails and frays, and basically eventually it just deteriorates to the point where it's not connected anymore. That's a chronic injury. And then sometimes you'll have one where you're trying to throw super hard, and you throw too hard, and then basically you overstress it, and then it snaps. That's an acute injury. I think with Ben, we might have a combination of both. It sounds like this was something that was bothering him beforehand. There was probably already damage in the area. And then he's trying to push through that, and then basically pushes it too hard and tears it. Now, the question is, when's he going to come back? And typically with a UCL injury like this, the players would get what is called in baseball a Tommy John surgery, or UCL reconstruction. That is not what you want to hear, because we know that basically that surgery can take anywhere from 18 to 24 months to return to full throwing activities. When you're dealing with an older quarterback like Ben, we don't have 2 years to wait for him. So the team has come out and basically said, multiple reports now have said that he did not have Tommy John surgery. That's interesting to me, because that's kind of the standard for this type of injury. So you have to go a little bit deeper. How did they fix this? We know it has to be fixed. We know he had surgery. How do we fix this if he didn't have Tommy John surgery? And so I put on my detective hat. I managed to get it around the hair, which, and
I was just going to
anyone
ask if
saw
it
our
fit around
last
the
video
hair.
on AJ Green, the hair is, we're almost at man bun territory. And I had to think, basically, what am I going to do? What could they have done to his elbow, basically, to fix it and get him back in less than 12 months? And so what I found is that there are a few alternative surgeries, but the most widely regarded new surgery that is trying to replace the Tommy John is something called an internal brace, or primary repair surgery. The pros are that this surgery basically causes, I mean, it's a faster recovery. It does not take as long to return to play. The limited research that they have has basically said that, your recovery is anywhere from 9 to 12 months. So that's a lot faster than what I just said with the Tommy Johns. The cons are that it's a pretty new procedure. There's not a whole lot of people that do it, and because it's new, there's not a ton of research out there yet on how effective or how long this thing is going to last. So I think that's what Ben ended up having. They have been very adamant that he did not have Tommy Johns. So I think that he had basically this internal brace or primary repair surgery. And the goal, I think, is to get him back on the field as quickly as possible and try to get him playing out, this year and next year. And then he's probably done after that.
Yeah, absolutely. We're talking about a quarterback who just in 2018 had 675 pass attempts.
Yeah.
I mean, those are huge numbers for a quarterback in the NFL, and it's not a shock that a year later, had he had something for a while, that an injury like this occurred. So now going forward, I mean, we're talking about there's this chance that if he had this new surgery, that he could be available start of the season. Is it worth the risk, though? Maybe not so much of drafting Ben Roethlisberger in your fantasy drafts, but more of what about the pieces around him, the JuJus, the Deontay Johnsons, who a lot of people like, James Washington. We got the new weapon in Chase Claypool, James Conner in the backfield. I mean, do we want to risk it with any of those guys, taking a chance that we may not have Ben for sure in 2020?
I think you really have to weigh kind of what you expect this offense to be. I don't think he's going to throw, if he comes back and plays a full season, we're not going to see gunslinger big men. I just don't see any way that would be. I think you're dooming him to fail if you try to make him throw 600 times. It looks like the team wants to invest in basically a multi-headed monster through the run game. They drafted Anthony McFarland, who's got a little bit of juice. They still got James Conner. Jalen Samuels is out there doing some work. So I think if you're going to invest in someone, you have to invest in whoever Ben's slot guy tends to be the one that's the position that is going to get peppered with volume. I think part of the reason why the team went out and drafted Chase Claypool, even when they probably should have gotten a guy like Jalen Hurts, to back up Ben is because they want somebody that can basically push JuJu back into the slot or away from outside coverage. We saw, while I think it's way too soon to say that he isn't able to do that or he won't eventually be able to do that. JuJu Smith-Schuster was much better working out of the slot opposite of Antonio Brown than he was last season. And of course, he only got one game with Ben, and he was pretty good in that game. So, to me, I think JuJu is probably the guy that I'm willing to draft because he's kind of independent of Ben somewhat. Now with Claypool there, he's still going to be running out of the slot, and which I think is where he's more comfortable right now and the most effective. I'm okay with investing in the running backs. If if you go wide receiver heavy early, grabbing the two running backs. Later in drafts, I think Connor's value is decreasing with McFarland. So you're probably going to be able to get both in a redraft league, especially. So I don't hate that as a play, but I can tell you right now, I'm not drafting Ben Roethlisberger anywhere. I'm not trading for him. To me, he is. I every year I put together a list of players that I will not draft because I'm worried about their injuries. I'm telling you right now, he is on the list. He's the first official person on Ethan's do not draft list due to injury. It's got to be Big Ben, which sucks as a Steelers fan. I hope he comes back healthy. I hope he gives us, another run, possibly a Super Bowl. But for fantasy, no way I'm taking that risk.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's too many other options out there at a quarterback position that's super deep, but it's something we need to pay attention to. I mean, here in the coming months, do they end up going out and getting a Cam Newton? I mean, they missed out on Jameis Winston. Sounds like they made an offer to him, which he declined to go make less money to learn under Drew Brees, which I can't say that I blame entirely. I don't know if learning under Big Ben would be the best scenario for a lot of quarterbacks. But
Probably not.
If Ben isn't 100% and they do go get a Cam Newton, then all of a sudden it's still more question marks because we still don't know the 100% health of Cam Newton either. It's kind of the Rona's fault. We're going to blame it on the Rona, Ethan, because nobody can see these people work out or exercise or do anything. But like you said, I think whoever moves into the slot, which it sounds like it could be JuJu, would probably be one of the safest options if you have to go that route. But it's really going to be dependent for me on his ADP. How high does he climb? If we're left in the dark all offseason and we don't know anything about Big Ben, we don't see him throwing, we don't see him working out, I may tend to stray away a little bit if that ADP doesn't really, really decrease. But as long as Big Ben's under center, I love me some JuJu. Inside, outside, whatever it is, I love the talent of JuJu Smith-Schuster. I think he's highly underrated, and I think he's getting some unfair treatment because of last year, because people are just forgetting about the quarterback play, the level of it last year.
Yeah, I agree. And especially in Dynasty, I mean, he is what, 23 right now. He's one that I'm aggressively targeting. We've seen him put up a 1,400-yard season. He's still as young as some of the rookies that we're hyping up right now at this time of the year. And he could find a different team. I mean, even if if you're worried about the quarterback situation going forward, there's a good chance, or at least a non-zero chance, that they don't pay JuJu after this year. And he's on a team with maybe an even better quarterback situation. So to me, JuJu just screams value because he's not anywhere close to his peak of what he's going to be as a wide receiver. Yes, this year might be a little bit down compared to even, I won't say it will be down compared to last year because I don't think you can get much worse situation than last year. But it could still not be that 1,400-yard season that we saw a couple years ago, just because I don't know if we can trust Big Ben to support a guy the way that he was supporting two guys prior to this injury. The nature of it just is not good for his production output.
Yep, absolutely. Well, as you can tell, Big Ben, a lot of question marks. A lot of question marks that we're going to hopefully have some answers to here after the next few weeks, few months leading up to this season. It's going to be something we have to pay attention to, and don't worry, Ethan's not going anywhere. Ethan will be here all off season long, all regular season long. We're going to try to give you as much injury information as we possibly can. If you're in a dynasty league and you're looking for some rookie help, you're looking for some injury histories on some rookies, you need to head over to the website, thefantasyheadliners.com. Ethan has created a rookie injury guide that is second to none in the industry, and people are enjoying it, Ethan.
Yeah, the people love it. I'm getting ready. Basically, at the end of this month, we're dropping our first update. My wife and I are working very hard. My wife is the graphic designer. When you see this thing, you're going to know that it was well worth the $10 just from the just for the aesthetic of it. I mean, it literally looks and is one of the most professional looking guides on the market. But yeah, we're getting ready to update it. So I'm going to get to work on that.
Yep, absolutely. We'll have make sure all the updates are ready to go on the website. Ethan, get it out to you. Head over there, check it out. Lots of other content also. Appreciate your time, Ethan. And I'm sure we're going to be doing more of these videos here on a weekly basis as we get into it, but we want to make it interactive to the people. Maybe there's some names out there that you're kind of wanting to hear about that maybe you haven't heard a whole lot about in the past few months. Put those down below in the comment section. We'll tally those up. We'll keep track of it, and we'll try to get as many of those players, at least get you some answers on some of ththose players as we possibly can. We greatly appreciate the support. Make sure you hit that like button, not for me, but for Ethan's hair, because that's always something positive to look at. I mean, it's almost man bun territory, but that's okay. If anybody's going to have a man bun in fantasy football, it's going to be here on this channel. Nobody else can pull that off except for Ethan. Maybe one other person, but that's about it. But you guys have a great rest of your day. We greatly appreciate the support. Hit that subscribe button, and we'll talk to you later. Have a good one. Thanks.